Hello, I'm here with a drink in my hand, because I'm a cliche, if nothing else. Waiting for my co-host Rylend to join me. There he is. Rylend Grant, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I was sitting in the waiting room just waiting to come in, full bore with my intro, and then they just cut to you. So, somewhat less. Yes. Should we do it? We'll do a countdown, and then I'll just come right in. All right, you ready?
3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Writer's Block, Episode 7, Ringo Awards Riot, coming to you live from the Baltimore Comic-Con, brought to you by Pinocchio's, Nevada's only all-puppet brothel. It would have been funnier if I didn't trip over the words, but we're live.
It's okay, it's a live show.
I am Rylend Grant, the Ringo Award-winning creator of fine comics like Aberrant, Banjax, and The Peacekeepers. The other voice in the dark, the man in the box to the right where he should be.
David Avallone, film industry veteran, it's one way to put it, and comic book writer of Elvira, Betty Page, Doc Savage, The Shadow, and Vampirella, all for Dynamite. Co-creator of Drawing Blood and the radically rearranged Ronin Ragdolls with Kevin Eastman. And Rylend, tell us about last week's episode.
And all around good guys. Yeah, if you missed episode 6 last week, our Halloween horror powwow with the Nightmare Theater anthology editors Clay Adams and David Schrader, I strongly suggest that you back it on up and check that out. But David, we have a bonkers packed program today. I don't know how we're going to fit all of these people and all of this amazingness in.
An amazing group, and I was just told about a last minute addition who's super exciting. We're just a couple of hours away from the Ringo Awards, the Mike Wieringo Comic Book Awards. And for this very special episode, it's not going to be I Get My First Period. It's not that kind of very special episode of the Writer's Block. We have 4 of tonight's nominees on the show today as our guests. But lest we forget, we actually have 5 nominees today because there's a little comic up for a few awards called Banjax, written by some dude named Rylend Grant.
Oh, well, we just brought Pepos on. Hey, Pepos, you're peeking in. Oh. We're not ready for Pepos yet. Kick Pepos out for a minute. Yes, my dark superhero noir Banjax is nominated for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Ringo Awards this year. We are the tiny independent book, The Little Engine That Could, that is nominated for Best Series alongside Bitterroot and Something's Killing the Children and Black Hammer and all sorts of other goodness. So I don't see us edging those behemoths out, but this is very much a it was I miss being there. I mean, I was down there last year for Aberrant. I remember that. Won a Ringo last year and was nominated for 2 others. We surprise win there, but it was such an amazing experience being there, being in that community. And so we have done this. We have staged this podcast, this Ringo Awards riot, with it is almost a Royal Rumble of nominees to come in, talk, and do a little kind of like a BarCon action for us, right?
Yes, so that is the general feeling that we go for. Good luck tonight, by the way. I want to say that. And now let's Brady Bunch out. Let's bring in the whole crew, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves. Who we got so far?
Okay.
We have Mr. David Pepos, Matt Fraction, Scott Dunbier, and Drew Edwards.
Howdy.
And we're waiting on Stan Sakai, and Troy Little should be in there too.
Yeah, Troy Little. Troy Little. Wow. Okay.
Completing the Brady Bunch.
Scott is in
the man named Riley.
For me, Scott is in the Paul Lind spot, which is the sweet spot, the Ann B. Davis center square spot. But thanks everybody. Let's go around and self-introduce. Let's start with David Pepos.
Yeah, let us know who you are, where you've been, and what you're nominated for.
Hi, I'm David Pepos. I'm the writer of Spencer and Locke 2 and Going to the Chapel. Spencer and Locke 2 is nominated for Best Single Issue or Story, and Going to the Chapel is nominated for Best Presentation and Design. So thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Matt?
I am Matt Fraction, and I haven't been anywhere in 7 and 8 months. and I'm along with Steve Lieber, nominated for Best Humor Publication of Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen.
Nice. Scott?
Hello, my name is Scott Dunbier. I'm here in my very messy office. I'm an editor at IDW Publishing. I do comics as well as art books, artist editions, things like that, and nominated for the Stan Sakai Usagi Yojimbo Complete Grass Hutter Artist Select. And don't ask me to repeat that.
Well done.
And that's it.
Very nice. And Drew?
Howdy, I'm Drew Edwards, all the way here from beautiful Austin, Texas, and I am nominated in the Best Writer category for Halloween Man and Lucy Chaplin Science Starlet, which are my independent books that I published through Comixology.
Very nice. And last but not least for now, Mr. Troy Little.
Hey, Troy Little, keeping the CanCon here. You're a Canadian little delegate here. And I'm nominated for Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons artist on that. So I guess me and Matt are duking it out for the humor publication. May the best man win.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow, shots fired.
Very nice. Now, when we get to see Superman's pal Rick and Morty, that would be a comic.
Right.
That's a given win there.
Crossover potential.
Huge crossover potential. Very Superman, Spider-Man energy in that one. So, pretty sure I'm the only one here not nominated for anything. Not bitter about it. Perfectly happy.
You're nominated in our hearts.
I do get to work with Troy Little, so I feel like I win in at least that one regard. But I'm going to throw out a question, which is, what does this mean to you? Like, it's we're all sort of living through this very distanced time, and this is a little bit of connection to the community that we've missed. And I'll start with David Pepos. You've been nominated before. What's this do for you?
Yeah, well, the first time my books got nominated was 2018 for Spencer and Locke, and that was just totally shocking. That was my first book, so getting nominated was just incredible. For Spencer and Locke 2 and Going to the Chapel, it feels both surprising and really validating. For Spencer and Locke, just the fact that people really rallied around a sequel, which kind of feels really I feel so grateful to our readership for voting for us on that. Going to the Chapel, though, a book that's a hostage situation set at a wedding. It took me quite a while to sell that book. Everybody said we don't know how to sell a crime rom-com. So getting this nomination, it feels very validating because we believed in this book, and it looks like the readers did too.
Pepos, did you just come from your day job in the drive-thru at McDonald's, or it's a bad headset joke? Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
My hair is far too pretty for me to wear a headset. Matt, how about you? How do you feel about the nomination for tonight?
I guess weirdly nostalgic. I was born in Chicago, but I lived in North Carolina for a long time and used to work at Heroes Aren't Hard to Find in Charlotte, and was a part of Heroes Con for a long time, where just being in Carolina, knew Mike as a fan and as a kind of presence in my kind of earliest sense of the comic scene. We were actually in the process of working together when he passed away, and I miss him greatly. So the idea of my name and his name being on a thing, however tangentially connected in that way, is incredibly meaningful to me, because he was a sweet guy and a great guy, and comics are better off for the work he did and worse off for his absence.
I've heard that a lot from people about this particular award, that the Eisner is prestigious, but this is the connection of this to Mike's work and his life is super meaningful for people. I never had the pleasure of meeting him or working with him, but I, of course, admired his work. Scott? Scott, thoughts, feelings?
Yeah, it's always a great honor to be nominated for something. It's funny. I always tell my kids, I've been very fortunate. I've won a few of these in the past, awards, not Ringos, but So I always tell my kids that it's it doesn't really mean that much. It's just it's an honor to be nominated kind of thing. And if I win, I win. Although, winning does feel pretty good, if I'm going to be totally honest. But, it's just an honor. And especially to work on a book like The Complete Grass Cutter, to do something like that with Stan. And, I think more than anything else, what matters the most to me is that Stan told me this is the best book that's ever been done in his work. So that's the most important thing.
I totally get that. That means a lot. And Drew?
Well, I've been doing this book for 20 years now, and it's actually the 20th anniversary this month. And the fact that I am, a self-published book to get nominated for something like this is indeed a very deep honor to me, and something I take very seriously, especially since I started doing the comic as a way to deal with the loss of my twin, who I lost in a car accident when I was in my very early 20s. So I also see this as, I'm honoring my twin and that loss by continuing to forge on and make art and make comics. And because of that, to get this nomination, I feel like I already won, especially since I'm in a category with so many talented, accomplished people. It's very deeply meaningful to me.
It's really fantastic. And Troy?
Being nominated for anything is still surreal to me. So I'm totally pumped for just that simple fact. I've been a bridesmaid, never a bride, for various award shows. So we'll see tonight if it's like this is the one that kind of breaks my streak.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess if I'm going to pop in on that question, yes to all of that. A total honor to be nominated. Just kind of bowls you over. The experience of going in and just I don't know. It's like somebody knighted you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm sitting here on a nominee feed with Matt Fraction. Like Matt, your Hawkeye book like blew my mind. It's one of my favorite books ever. Now I'm sitting, here nominated, at the same award show with you. I remember last year going to the Baltimore Comic-Con. And I was in the airport, and I walked into a barbecue joint, and see a man with a pretty cool-ass goatee sitting at the bar, and it was Brian Azzarello, who was my kind of ultimate comic hero growing up, and went and sat down next to Brian Azzarello, and had a drink with him, and we talked comics. I mean, it was it's weird. I mean, you're kind of let into this very exclusive club. It's interesting, and it means so much to guys with you heard Drew say it. I mean, guys who have smaller books. I mean, it's if you have a big and bad book, it's one thing. But I had the two books that I got nominated for are Action Lab books. And just right off the bat, I don't know, it's like people don't take you as seriously, I guess, when you're kind of self-publishing, or if you're doing an indie book or something like that, and you got to fight really hard to get in front of people. And a Ringo nomination or a few Ringo nominations, it immediately, again, you're knighted. People start taking you seriously. And then when you win one, I mean, I saw it happen overnight. I was on the floor at the Baltimore Comic-Con in a booth the entire time. And there were publishers that wouldn't talk to me the morning of the Ringo Awards. And then I went and I won one that night. And when I got back to my booth the next morning, those publishers were coming up to me and saying, "Hey, what do you got, man?" And those
very smooth.
those those opportunities are rare in this business. I mean, there's so many of us trying to do this at a professional level, and there are only so many spots on every bench, and they are coveted, and they're well fought for, and so this gives you an edge. It's important.
I'm curious, just because of the kind of work I do, it's not really. I think Eastman once sent me an email saying this script is going to win you an Eisner. I was like, sure, buddy, our self-published comic. That's totally going to happen. And that's very sweet. But I have to wonder, like, Matt, when you were working on a Jimmy Olsen comic, you didn't think this is the awards. This is the fountain of awards coming to me from this.
No, but I've never thought that about anything. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that just makes it. I stood in front of the Eisner audience and said that I was glad Will was gone because he didn't have to see what they've done in his name. You know what I mean? Like I didn't, which is a shitty thing to say to, you know, in front of a table of his family, but I said it. Like it just
What
never,
book was that for?
Sex Criminals.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because that one especially, Hawkeye would have been cooler about, but Sex Criminals, like I don't know, guys.
Sure.
No, it's all of it is insane. I'm amazed that people read it. Period. I will tell friends of mine about something I have written, and they will sort of like, yeah, I read it, and it like, oh right, I forgot. Like it doesn't. All of it is. I don't know. I all of it is a surprise. That any of it ever gets published is a surprise. That anyone let Jimmy Olsen happen, a comic in which an old woman's ass falls off. like half the time it felt like cries for help. Like, is anyone paying attention? What if I put this in? What if I put that in? Like, it was really about Steve, you know, and like working with Steve and having a good time, and like not everything else has been gravy.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, especially as writers, we work in complete isolation.
Yeah.
You hit send on an email. It's like Christmas when people send you the art and you go, wow, that looks way better than what I would have thought of. And then, you know, you can't be in every comic book store in the world, even with the internet, even with comment sections. You know, even you look at Comic-Con and you went, oh, 20,000 people bought that. That's nice. Or 30 or 50 or whatever your level of success is. But you don't know those people. They aren't part of your life. You know, New Comic Book Day, 1,000 people don't rush up to you on the street and treat you like a movie star. So you're just like,
I did see that happen to David Walker once.
Really?
And it
no one deserves it more.
And it was when we just so happened to be with David Walker's mother. and he got made on the street. And
that's so great.
It was like, I was like, did you pay that? Did you set that up, David? Like, it was the craziest thing. Anyway,
my wife calls that
happened. I saw it once.
My wife calls that the soap dish moment,
right.
where you turn to a friend of yours and go, "Oh my God, it's David Walker, author of Bitter Root," and see what happens, and see if it draws a crowd. What book was it that they were reacting to with David, or was it the whole vibe of David?
His entire David Walker-ness.
Yeah,
I think, I think that too. But like, I think Shaft had just come out,
right?
And it was sort of, as you know, it was kind of like meeting Shaft for like it was sort of, it wasn't just like, it was a whole mood, as the kids say. Like I think it was when it was Shaft. Like,
and I took and you know,
well, he is one bad mother.
He really is one bad mother.
And the scary thing, Matt, is that we had David Walker on the show, and we finished our hour with him, and we shut down, and then I turned to Avallone and I said, you know what? That was just like meeting Shaft. That was exactly what I said, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, and in terms of a writer and a writer's career, what makes him the most like Shaft is that he went after that license, got it, set it up, and walked it into Dynamite. That wasn't a phone call from Joe Rybant saying, "Hey, we got this license if you'd like to try it out," which is how most of the stuff I work on has come from. He 100% with his bare hands made that happen, and kept the torch running that deserved to keep running.
There's like no better portrait of David as a creator than a guy who was browbeaten out of DC and producing a subpar DC stuff, and then creating Bitterroot at the same time. You know, it's sort of like, hey, buddy, you might be in the wrong band. You know, I'm so excited to be part of the David Walker tribute panel, you guys. I miss him every day. David.
Yeah, David's great. He's been on our podcast. He's been on the Pulp podcast I do, reading from the work of Donald Goines. I'm his biggest fan, if not you. So, and speaking of being people's big fans, I wanted to talk to Scott about, you know, you worked with Stan on the book, and I don't know how closely you worked or how I know that a lot of the work you do, those amazing artist editions. I can see the Steranko Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gorgeousness out of the corner of my eye. You know, sometimes you're working with artists who aren't around, and what's the contrast like?
you know, when I was doing the Grasscutter book, Stan was very gracious and completely hands off. Of course, when everything was done and or close to being done, I sent him a full PDF of the book, and he sent back some notes. It was mostly just, "This looks great." You know, every artist is different. You know, David Mazzucchelli on Daredevil Born Again, you know, I sent him PDFs, and he asked if there was one thing I could do, and then he said everything else was great as is. That was very nice. And as far as with artists who aren't around, you just try to do the best project you can to honor their work. You know, I mean, I'm a big fan of EC Comics, so to me, those books are very important to me, especially the. You know, I don't really have a favorite. I mean, I love Wally Wood, so that one's great to me. But the Mad one was maybe the most fulfilling one because I was able to get Terry Gilliam to do an introduction for it.
Wow!
And it was actually a funny story when I kept on trying to reach out to Gilliam, and I would get no response from his literary agent. You know, I sent like 5-6 emails, and literally a month before the book was going to the printer, I tried one last time, and instead of no reply, I did get a reply, but it was from the agent's assistant, who told me that Mr. Gilliam's agent was on vacation and he was much too busy to do this, but he had taken it upon himself to just forward my email to Terry Gilliam. And 2 hours later, I had an email from the guy saying, "Oh, I spoke too soon." And then 4 hours later, I had the introduction. Wow. So it was long.
Well, I mean, you know, when something is as big and seminal an influence on you as Mad Magazine was on Terry Gilliam, it's hard to believe that he wouldn't want to talk about that. But while we're talking,
especially the connection to Harvey Kurtzman, because Gilliam actually worked with Kurtzman on Help back in the 60s. So there was a very, very close personal relationship there.
That explains a lot.
Yeah.
While we're talking about giants and influences on all of that, I have in the waiting room, waiting to come in, someone who I like to think of personally as the artist on the variant cover of Radically Rearranged Ronin Ragdoll's #1. But he's also known for this rabbit thing, which is apparently great. Ladies and gentlemen, Stan Sakai. There he is. Yay.
Hi, guys. Howdy, Stan. No, fashionably late. It's a great entrance. I wish I would have thought of it.
And congratulations on your nominations.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I looked at the nomination list. I have, of course, been reading Usagi Yojimbo. And I was like, what happened in issue 6 that made it so great? And I went and picked it out and said, oh, yeah, this was a really great issue. It was an amazing little, 22-page Kurosawa movie.
Right. Yeah, it was a retelling of the very first Usagi Yojimbo story, 35 years prior to issue 6 coming out. So that was really special to me. So thank you.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful issue on every firing on all cylinders, the art and the writing and all that. It's a gorgeous ghost story. Mm-hmm. With the wife and the husband and all that. It's just really everybody go out and buy as much Usagi Yojimbo as they possibly can, because it's beautiful, poetic, exciting. It's what comics were made to do. Before you got here, we asked a question around about what awards mean to you. You have won every award. You've been nominated for 21 Eisners. I think I saw that. Is that the current tally? Do I have that right?
I think it's a bit more.
No, really? Someone hasn't updated your Wikipedia page. That's I would lodge a formal complaint. But the question we asked everybody, which I'm now asking you, is, after all these years, all these awards, what does it mean to you to get a Ringo nomination or a bunch? Well,
it's really special. Each award is really significant in that, most freelancers like myself work in isolation, and except for the conventions and just feedback from letters or emails, we really don't know what the public reaction, the reader's reaction is to our work. So the awards are like a physical manifestation of saying that you're doing a good job. And while we're on the topic of it, I have to thank my good friend Scott Dumbier because for the wonderful job he did on the Grasscutter Artist Select Edition. It's nominated for a Ringo Award, and it also won the Eisner Award this year. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Sam.
Yes, I was watching the Eisners and was very excited when Phil Lamar, my old buddy, read out your name.
Oh, thank you.
It's always great.
So, I mean, Stan brings up a really interesting thing, and we've kind of like hinted at it and danced around it a little bit. How is everybody doing without cons? I mean, they were kind of the lifeblood of this business. What kept us all kind of like up and going. They're not there anymore. There have been, attempts at replacing bits and pieces of that experience. This podcast was one of them. But how is everybody doing without cons? Who wants to jump in?
Well, okay, I can jump in, I guess.
Well,
okay, go ahead, Troy.
So my wife and I started our own little imprint, decided we would publish our own books, and ran a couple Kickstarters. So we published 2 books through Kickstarter, and now we have nowhere to sell them. So we had the boxes and boxes downstairs, just like, wouldn't it be great if you could put these in people's hands right now? So for me, like, in Canada, like most of the shows are in the US, which there's no way I could even get down there if there were shows right now. It just kind of hamstrings you entirely as far as getting your books out there and showing hey, this is the new stuff that we've been doing. And it's not stuff that might be on people's radar in the big sense of, say, like the Rick and Morty book or something. So I miss it because I would love to be at a con with all these guys right now and having drinks, and it's a whole different experience. I would love to be there with you guys in person. So maybe next year.
well,
go ahead, Drew.
What I wanted to say is, because I do things primarily digitally and working through Comixology, I think from a sales standpoint, I haven't really, suffered that much comparatively to other people. But what he was just saying, the human interaction part and being able to be like face to face with your fan base. And, there's certain people that I've just gotten used to seeing at certain cons during the year. Like, for example, there's an anime convention that I do every year in Dallas called A-Fest. And I love going to that con because the people are so great. And I miss them. They become like your family. And, there is no digital replacement for that. Like we can do Zoom meetings and, share digital comics and all that, but there's no replacement for face-to-face interaction. It just can't be beat.
I might be kind of in the minority. I mean, I miss conventions. I love conventions, but I kind of feel like I've been more productive this year, just in lieu of all the traveling. I've written a number of books during the pandemic, which I think there was sort of less of the direct market rat race because everybody was kind of figuring out where they're going to pivot next. And I think, Kickstarter has been a platform that's been really energized during the pandemic. I did a book called The OZ, which is kind of Mad Max meets The Wizard of Oz on Kickstarter. And it's been, I think, a time to kind of reflect a little bit and kind of figure out how are we going to do business? How are things going to change? And I think by sort of it's kind of forced everybody to slow down a little bit, and maybe with the short term panic, maybe the longer term we might be able to come up with some more sustainable ways to do business.
It's interesting.
Hey Scott, what is your take on that? I mean, we're hearing from creators, and what is an editor's perspective on all of that? What is the talk inside a publishing house?
First, I actually really miss shows a lot. I really missed WonderCon and San Diego Con. Just walking down the aisles and bumping into people, like Stan and Daniel and everybody else. I mean, just lots of old friends. Some, you just pass and say hi. Others you stop and talk to for 20 minutes. Going out with people, having a nice dinner, all that stuff, and then meeting meeting fans, talking to new artists and writers, walking around Artist Alley, all that stuff. It's, I don't want to say it's hitting me hard, but I'm definitely missing it a lot. And we're at IDW, like many publishers, we have different exclusives at New York Comic-Con. We did at San Diego Con, and they did fine. And then sales actually aren't bad. They're actually pretty strong for us. I don't know. I mean, my main thing is I miss the interaction with people that I see year after year and that I miss.
Totally. I mean, I met Stan at San Diego. Kevin Eastman was nice enough to introduce us, and possibly the rudest I have ever been in my life. I think the first words out of my mouth were, "Will you do a cover for us?" I will always apologize for not saying even "I love Usagi Yojimbo" before saying, "Hey, Stan, will you do a cover for us?"
Speaking of Stan, I want to talk to you about something after this. So if you could just stay in the waiting room.
But yeah, the personal interaction and the way in which cons make us a community in a way that nothing else that we do really makes us a community. There's the community that coalesces around your local comic store Wednesday afternoon, if possible, and then there's the cons. And the cons are such a glue. And I mean, writers don't make money at cons the way artists do. Like, well, my economy is not based on me selling sketches. It would be quite a disaster if it was. But how did it feel? How was it different for you, Stan? How has this year been for you?
Well, like you and Scott, it's the people I miss. Interacting with fans, also with other professionals. Every year at San Diego Con, a group of us professionals get together and have one great dinner, and we just have a whole night together. And I miss that. But it's also interacting with the fans and everything. But because of the pandemic, because of quarantine, I mean, I have never been so productive before. I'm right on deadline, and with the Netflix deal, I mean, we're reading scripts and everything, so we're really busy. And I don't do that many conventions. I do maybe 6 conventions and 2 international trips or so. But because we're staying at home, my editor's happy because work keeps coming in on time. So in that standpoint, it's business as usual for us. In fact,
I do know how you feel about that. I think a week ago I finished a script and I was like, I don't have a deadline right now, and it was like the first time in 3 or 4 years that I didn't have like, I got to get that thing in. I wasn't late. I'm not late on anything. How amazing is that? And I think cons and travel would definitely have had an effect on that. Matt, what's your take?
I was kind of going on what Stan says. Stan and I and my wife, we met in Barcelona, and it was occurring to me how much cons grow our world, sort of literally, and that I had never been to Barcelona before, and it was pretty great. Seeing new places and things, but also it's kind of the best way to learn about new books. It's my favorite place to discover new comics and new comic creators, and it wandering around and just meeting people, locals especially, who have just kind of set up a table and are, I've found so many. That is how my wife met Valentine Delandro, was wandering Artist Alley at a show in Canada, and a lot of meaningful kind of personal, professional, and just fan relationships have started at cons for me. And so that it's the face-to-face interaction is big and certainly missed, but the chance to see the world and to see the world of comics is sorely lacking. That said, when we don't travel anywhere, we don't spend money. So we've just been like, gosh, all you had to do is not spend money all this time to have money in the bank. That's crazy. Yeah. Okay. We noticed that the other day.
Yesterday,
you don't tour around the world and bring your kids and all that stuff. It's you save an incredible amount of money.
I had an emergency yesterday where my old car broke down and I had to sort of emergency buy myself a car. and the down payment was $2,000, and I was like, that's less than San Diego, so I feel like I have that money to spend. Like, that's literally a lower output of funds, so I guess I still have that money in the bank, and I can spend it on a car for myself. But yeah, it's and what Matt said about Barcelona, I don't know how everybody else feels about this. It's partially from being a film crew guy for 30 years that I always kind of prefer work travel to travel. When I travel on vacation, like I can sit on a beach for a few weeks. It's nice, but I kind of dig having something to do. And I feel like you interact in a more interesting way with your surroundings than you do when you're just a tourist.
Yes and no. My wife is a musician, so outside of traveling for cons, I've done a lot of living out of a tour van, which is a little obscene for a middle-aged man.
That's
but
a different story, yeah.
yeah. I there's something to be said about what you're saying, is that you definitely experience a place when you're going for lunches or dinners with people. You're rushing around, that kind of thing. But I definitely, there's something to be said for the leisurely vacation vibe as well.
Well, to split the difference, I can remember my wife produces burlesque shows, and she used to produce one at Comic-Con every year. And I distinctly remember it might have been 2009, where if the show didn't do well, I don't think I could have paid our hotel bill. So I'm glad to not have that pressure. Like, that's a little more rock and roll than I ever want to be ever again in my life. But
what was the plan if you couldn't pay the bill? Were you guys going out the window in the middle of the night? What was the
anything's possible. I don't recall having a plan. I got to say, gee, I hope we sell a bunch of tickets to this.
When I was a lot younger, I used to do a lot of shows. I was an art dealer before I was an editor. So I would do maybe 10 shows a year. And the highlight, San Diego was always fun. Chicago was always fun. And then some of the others were fine. But the highlight for me was I would do 4 shows a year in Europe. I would do the UCAC, which was the old United Kingdom Comic Art Convention that's long gone. I would do Lucca in October, and then there used to be a second Lucca in March, I think every other year. And then I would also do Angoulême. And those were great. That was like sort of my vacation every year. But I find I actually recently, 6 months ago, canceled a trip to England with my family, which was tough because my kids have never been to Europe before. My wife hasn't been to Europe. And, for the past 5 or 6 years, I've sort of regretted that I haven't really spent more family vacation time. So I've been making an effort to actually go on vacation, not work time. I actually was planning on going, besides just to England, a few months ago, we were going to go to Italy as well, to Lucca, because I wanted to show my family Lucca, which is, besides being an incredible convention, just one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to in my life. I mean, the wall of Lucca, if you guys have been to it, is very memorable and incredible.
It's where all those Assassin's Creed games happen. It's great.
Oh, is that true? Weirdly,
it looks like it's a walled, city.
Weirdly, I made a documentary largely about Lucca a few years ago, and I had no idea that there was a big comic book convention there. He passed away since, but I knew this 90-something-year-old African-American World War II veteran who liberated the town of Lucca in 1942.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
the whole thing of coming back to the United States and not being treated with the respect due a veteran because he was a black man. And he discovered a woman who runs a bed and breakfast there, found him online and said, "You should come to Lucca because once a year we literally have a parade about you."
Wow.
And your squad. So he went back and rode at the head of a bunch of reenactors
Wow.
And finally got to enter the city of Lucca as a conquering hero, like 50 years after he had done it as a teenager in olive drab. So that was kind of cool. Movie's called With One Tied Hand, by the way, if anyone's interested. But it's great to hear that about Lucca. I've always really
It's a
wanted
beautiful
to
city.
go.
I was at Lucca a couple of times. The last time was last year, I guess, 2018. And I had a signing and a meet and greet in a palace. And it was ornate. It was beautiful. I mean, Lucca is such a beautiful city. It's a huge. The streets there are narrow and packed, though.
And the
Yeah,
wall,
obviously,
I
I've
can't
seen a lot
begin
of
to
footage
talk
of
about
it.
the wall enough. I mean, if has anybody else been to Lucca?
Can't say I've had the pleasure.
It's got this immense wall that completely surrounds the town, but you can actually go up onto it, and there's a cobblestone street, and it's got grass and trees, and there are parts, I don't know what they're called, those kind of weird things that come out in different places, and it's maybe 30 feet above the town in places, but then at one point it goes down to street level by the Opera House, and there's actually a restaurant there near the Opera House. Stan, you must have seen this restaurant, the one with all the drawings in it by cartoonists.
Oh, I ate there.
Clearly, guys being made to sing for their supper. Yeah, it's amazing. There's a great gallery on the wall.
There are hundreds of drawings. It's incredible.
That's wild.
And the
So,
monastery
yeah,
where they grew an oak tree on the roof. And it was
And there's-
grown in the 1400s. There's this oak tree that's still up on a roof of a monastery.
And there's also, if I remember correctly, parts of that wall have a moat outside it. And I'm in favor of comic book conventions being held in places with giant walls and moats. I think
If you're gonna have a wall, you're gonna need a moat. Come on.
that's an idea whose time has come. I think the Hall H crowd
You're gonna
going
want the moat.
completely around that wall would really they'd have something to look at better than San Diego Harbor, which is nice. Don't get me wrong. I do love it there.
I love the view of the Joe's Crab Shack. It's is that still there?
Oh yes.
When we started doing conventions, which wasn't that long ago, that was the first time I've ever really traveled anywhere. It was like an excuse to go places. So having an opportunity to go, especially overseas into Europe and different places, was completely like some of the best thing. We would go for the show and stay an extra week to make sure that we would have like the show time and then a little personal adventure. We were at a BronyCon in Germany. That we were invited to. And there's stories about that.
BronyCon in Germany.
BronyCon in
There's
Germany.
a lot of images just flashing right there.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense, though.
Yeah. And then we stayed an extra week. We went to this little town called Rothenburg on the river. And it's a medieval 14th, 15th century castle city that was basically abandoned because of the plague. So it's like walking through Game of Thrones, and like you're saying, there's the wall. You can go up and walk around the walls and everything. It just blew my mind. Like you step back in time here, this is a totally different world than the one I grew up in.
The only con I've ever been a guest of honor at, I was writing a Doc Savage comic for Dynamite, and the Doc Savage Con invited me to be their guest of honor, which, as I expected, was about 3 dozen 60-year-old men in a room in a hotel. But my wife had never been to the Grand Canyon, and it was in Phoenix. So I was like, honey, we're going to the Doc Savage convention. You will be one of 3 people there. You will be one of 3 women there easily. And she was the youngest person in the room. But it was delightful, and they were a delightful crowd, and she got to see the Grand Canyon.
We were about a week behind Stan in Poland about a year ago. I think you were there, Stan.
Mm-hmm.
So I was watching his Instagram and thinking, oh, we got to go to this place. That looks cool. Basically following about a week later.
That's good.
Drew, you wanted to tell a story about Basil Gogos?
Yeah, well, all
I'm
this talk
pronouncing
about
that right.
Basil Gogos. All of this talk of conventions really got me going back to how conventions are a place that you not only get to meet your fan base, and that's swell, don't get me wrong, but you also get to meet people you've admired for a long time. And I started thinking back to about 5 years ago before he passed. I was at a horror convention in Denver, and Basil Gogos is one of the guests. And I, as you might guess, as a guy who does a comic called Halloween Man, am a bit of a monster aficionado. So I absolutely worship at the altar of his artwork. I have so much of his stuff in my collection and in my house. But in particular, I have a T-shirt for the band The Misfits that I have had for so long that it started to like fall apart, and I had to turn it into a patch on the back of one of my jackets. And I took that to the convention with the desire to have it sign it. And, you know, he was the sweetest guy. He let me talk to him for, you know, maybe 20 minutes. His wife was there taking care of him. And he signed a couple of my, you know, posters and everything. And then I took out the coat for him to sign, and he took one look at it and like put his finger through the Crimson Ghost's mouth and imitated like a tongue was coming through. And it was so funny, but it was also so humanizing to see this guy that I worshipped, that he could be a goofball just like me. And I just love that about conventions. I think that, you know, that is one of the things I miss. And
absolutely. That kind of I met Kevin Eastman at Emerald City a while back, and obviously Kevin introduced me to Stan, and you know, just the casualness of, you know, Kevin sat down next to me in a hotel bar. We started a conversation about Russ Heath 4 comics in the 70s, and that was the whole. Our entire partnership grew out of that. And as you know, as far as talking about things I miss at conventions, I now have a 2 convention running tradition with Howard Chaykin of when we run into each other, we sing a show tune together at the top of our lungs, regardless of what the audience or circumstances are.
I for a long time would just call Howard and say the name of a show tune that I had looked up on the internet, and then waited for him to sing it back. It was like Stump the Band with Stump.
Yeah.
One time Howard did a post about musicals, and so I chimed in, you know, being a bit of a theater. I chimed in and I said, "Oh, come on, Howard, tell everyone your favorite musical is really Grease 2." And typical Howard response. But
this is a side of Chaykin I never thought I would learn.
It is.
Oh,
it
yeah.
is. And he sings. He's got pipes too. That's the other thing. He's got pipes.
Oh, he's wrong. But you know, just I wanted to chime in on David's story about talking about Russ Heath at conventions, because nothing's more fun than talking about somebody's work and they happen to walk in. I was sitting talking to somebody at WonderCon a few years ago, and we were talking about Michael Golden, and I told that person, whoever it was, that Michael Golden's inking work changed after his run on Mr. Miracle, because Heath inked him on that, and Golden told me that he learned how to ink from Russ Heath. And at that moment, as on cue, Russ Heath walked into the bar, and I looked at it. I said, "Russ, I was just telling this person about how Golden says that you taught about ink," and he just went, "Oh, Jesus, is he still saying that?"
I don't know. I'd be pretty happy if one of the greatest artists told me that I learned from him. It's funny. I was obsessed with those Mike Golden Mr. Miracles forever because I felt like I was the only person on earth that remembered they existed.
They are the
Mike Golden being written by Steve Gerber. I mean, how could those
finished?
Yeah, it haunts me to this day. And they finally put out a collection, which I picked up this year.
I did too. They didn't have the last issue, which was completed. Oh, well,
oh, really? I have never seen it. That's
neither have I.
You know, there's a bunker underneath the building in Burbank. I'm not kidding. Where DC is, and that's where they have the vaults, and it's full of like, here's the copyright proof for Action Comics that they made at the post office. Here's the page where Robin lives. Here's the rarest DC comic of all, was produced for some kid's bar mitzvah in 1978. Neil Adams drew it.
Here's Swamp Thing meets Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but they like have
correctly.
these flat files, and it's, you know, Ark of the Covenant level.
Wow.
Stuff.
I got to walk through that when I was in New York, when I was a DC intern. It was wild.
Yeah. I've always wanted to write a movie about nerds who robbed that place. I think
I was going to say, Scott, me and you, ninja outfits. We will find that. We will find that lost issue of Mr. Miracle. We have run out of time. We have enough time to go around the circle and everybody say where you can be found and what you got coming up next. Let's start with Mr. Pepos.
Yeah, you can. I'm David Pepos. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at PeposD. It's just down here in the corner. Or David Pepos Comics on Facebook. You can subscribe to my newsletter, Pep Talks, at bit.ly/pepnews. And yeah, you can pre-order my new book from Aftershock, Scout's Honor. You should be able to pre-order it starting next week at your local comic book shop.
Nice. Scott.
Let's see. The Michael Golden Micronauts book is going to be, artist edition is going to be coming out on November 4th.
Oh, so exciting.
Actually,
No, don't you dare. Oh, how dare you. Don't do it. Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
Man, does it come with a cart? It's incredible.
That's the, this is the signed and numbered variant, not the main one. But I want to show you.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Oh, my God. That's so
Wow.
beautiful.
Incredible.
And then
Don't throw your back out.
That's more like the Macronauts.
they're good weather. The Jim Lee X-Men book is coming out early next year. Jim Lee's X-Men artist edition. What else? Have a bunch of artisan editions coming up. Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four, which are the same as artist editions, basically, but shrunk down to 12 inches, so they're more manageable to read. And a bunch of other things. There's a book called Bermuda that's coming out next year by John Layman and Nick Bradshaw, and that's it. Just working on stuff.
Love those guys. Drew, what are you up to?
Well, of course, you can find me by searching either Sugar Skull Media or Halloween Man on Comixology if you want to get the app and buy some comics. Actually, they're all on sale right now because Comixology was kind enough to do a 20th anniversary sale. On Instagram, I am Halloween Man Com, all one word. On that's Twitter. On Instagram, I'm Drew_Halloween Man. And on Facebook, you just do HalloweenMan.com. That'll take you right to the Halloween Man Facebook page.
Thank you. Matt, what you got up next?
Can be found at comic shops right now. Doing a sequence of graphic novels called November with Elsa Charité, and Volume 3 has just come out of that, 3 of 4. Doing a book called Adventure Man with Terry Dodson, which is issue 4, I think is already out. It comes out very soon. Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen is out in trade this week from the Ringo Award nominated Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen. Me and Steve Lieber and Nathan Fairbairn comes out this week. And the last issue of Sex Criminals with Chip Zdarsky and I drops this week as well. So I got
Congratulations.
what I'm doing with myself.
Hell of a
When
run.
you say the last issue, this is the last issue of this wraps it up.
That's it. It's the end. Yeah.
Wow.
We jumped ahead 3 years and 3 months, so we could end with issue 69.
Nice.
So it's a Coda wrap up. It's
that is-
3.5 years after issue 30. We just check in with everybody one last time, and then
That is
that's it.
fantastically juvenile, and I'm 100%.
Speaking of fantastic, Juve, keep your eyes out for the XXX photo cover with me and Chip. It'll be in a bright pink poly bag wherever filth is sold.
Now, when you say the XXX cover with you and Chip, that you and Chip on the cover,
That's exactly what that means. Yeah.
because
Wow.
I am not prepared for that emotionally.
It's the
Well,
cover
that's why
we've
we're
all been
wrapping it-
waiting
We're
for.
wrapping it in a bag for your protection and ours. So
Thank you. I appreciate
Nice.
that. Troy, how about you?
You can find me and my wife's work on Pegamoose Press. It's our little imprint. We've got 2 books, one called Halls of the Turnip King, and recently the final addition to the Angor Napkin saga. Previous 2 books were 2 of my Eisner noms, where, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. That could change tonight because Rick and Morty Dungeons and Dragons is up against Matt Fraction and Steve Lieber. So we're gonna see who's gonna win that battle of the heavyweights here. Yeah.
Very nice. And Troy failed to mention he is also on the upcoming artist and co-writer on the upcoming radically rearranged Ronin Ragdoll's animated adventures 40-page special,
When's that
which
happening?
I and 3 other people on the earth have seen, and it looks fantastic. It is a fantastic book.
I'm
And
ready for this.
Speaking of the Ragdoll, Stan, take us home. What do you got going on?
Yes, I have 2 series from IDW, Usagi Yojimbo and Usagi Yojimbo Origins, earlier stories that IDW is coloring. Let's see now. Also from Dark Horse, I've got Saga 9. Saga is the omnibus editions of Usagi. Number 9 is coming out next year, as well as second edition of Saga 1. So, still doing Usagi.
And happy we are that you are.
Oh, thank you.
And I have a Kickstarter running right now for Elvira the Omega Ma'am, which is sort of what it sounds like, a post-apocalyptic Elvira versus plague zombies story that one might say ripped from the headlines by. Another Kickstarter going on now for Nightmare Theater Anthology, which I have an 8-page story called German Chocolate, which is based somewhat whimsically on my father's World War II adventures and the fairy tale Hansel and Gretel. It's sort of the Princess Bride meets The Great Escape. And
so in that book, is Omega Man starring Charlene Heston?
No, it's not. It stars Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. But there are quite a bit of references to the Omega Man, and one of the working titles was The Last Sex Symbol on Earth. And you can find me at davidavallonefreelance.com. Rylend Grant.
I am being squeezed out of my panel slowly but surely, and I'm going to do this quick because we are up against the Ringo Awards. My Ringo Award-winning book, Aberrant, is available in fine comic shops everywhere. My now Ringo-nominated series, Banjax, is available in fine comic shops everywhere and via Comixology and Amazon and all that fine noise. I have a Kickstarter running too because I am not going to be left out. The Peacekeepers is available on Kickstarter, bit.ly/The Peacekeepers. It is a 64-page love letter to dark and decidedly quirky crime dramas like Fargo and No Country for Old Men. You're not going to want to miss it. If you are listening to us on one of our 3 YouTube channels or on Apple or Spotify or other fine purveyors of ear crack, smash that like button, give us a 5-star review, subscribe, tell your friends, the whole 9 yards. We got to get out of here. I wish we could stay forever. Thank you so much, guys. It was a hell of a show.
Thanks everybody for joining us.
We managed this chaos wonderfully. I wish people could have seen the chat that we were having while it was happening. It was almost funnier than what was happening online. You guys are great. Would love to get you on the show individually down the road. So keep in touch, guys. We'll see you. Enjoy the Ringo Awards. Good luck to everybody, unless you're nominated against me.
Thank you.